Hey all, and welcome to Thing. I'm just gonna say right up front, the place next door has had its alarm going off for hours, and there's nothing I can do about it. I don't think it's gonna pick up too bad. And if it does, you could maybe just like put in some really low background music of your own, because God knows I'm not gonna do that with the effort I put into this shit. Say hello, Jad and Specs.
Sub cheap podcast
Yeah.
SMH.
Well, speaking of no effort though, I made a new intro for the podcast and new thumbnails because right after the last one, Manny said, "By the way, I can make new intro music if you want." I was like, "Well, actually, now that you mention it, the one that I've been using is copyrighted, and no one really cared because it's this random thing that gets no views on the internet, but might as well do a new thing." So I made a new intro, and that took like 15 minutes.
Sweet. That's like 14 more minutes than we usually spend.
Yeah. Well, I went all out. I put in an assault vest and some boots. That was like
Oh, thump thump.
that was pretty fancy. Hey Jack, have you even seen the
No.
new thumbnail? I don't think I ever showed you.
No, I think I saw it on when you linked the video in the PE room. I think I saw it. I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something. I think people are jarred by the new intro, but it's nice to know. Anyway, we can get to the actual stuff. There's PPL obviously, but first we did more bands. These are actually probably more controversial and more worth going into than we have had in the past, because it's at the point where who knows how much we should ban some of these things. Not Ninjask. Ninjask, everyone thought was dumb pretty much. There was some anti-Ninjask sentiment, but nothing major, and no one on council really. It wasn't the most broken thing on its own, but it completely warped the meta, and no one wanted to play Ninjask meta because every team, as we'll see in PBL, is just Ninjask, Steel, Ground, Grass filler.
Probably the most boring meta I've ever played. Not gonna lie.
I didn't hate it for 1 week. For 1 week, I'm like, this could be a lot worse. For 1 week, there was still some fun stuff. But any longer, I'd be like, yeah, no, fuck that.
Dude, I couldn't take it, and I wasn't even playing that much. Like, it just it strained my eyes to like look at every game. Thump thump, Bible thump. Yep.
Yeah. So we voted on some other things. There's also Appleton, Executor, Berserker, and Gapadash, which I'm gonna keep saying out loud just to increase the discomfort. While I'm at it, moist.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Oh no. We need to ban this one ASAP.
Alright, so first of all, we banned Berserker. This is one that Hajad was in favor of, as were 4 other council members. But I think overall, sentiment was actually like pro Berserker staying, including from me and Akir. So this is definitely like the controversial thing to talk about, where it's a little bit silly. It's a little bit of a horsemon. I was of the opinion that we could deal. That for the most part, it's still like slow and exploitable. But on the other part, it's kind of silly. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a big thing for you is both that it's like a silly mon, and also like we need to get to a more playable meta. And the same way Ninjask warps the meta, Berserker has like this clearly defined impact that you were just much less a fan of.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good way of putting it. I think with Berserker in particular, it kind of did this. I don't want to say the same thing, but it kind of warped the meta in the same way that Ninjas did towards like Stunfisk plus Breaker balance.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I thought that it was worth trying to keep around, it just wasn't feasible if every team had to run a Stunfisk to be safe from it. And even if you do have Stunfisk, well, there's no guarantee that you'd beat the Berserker in the long game.
Mm-hmm. Seed bomb and stuff.
Yep.
And it's pretty free for Berserker, like even just AV to sack itself to just weaken Stunfisk to the point where it can't ball something else. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like I definitely get all that. I just felt it was more manageable because of how many things in the meta like aren't really 1v1 by it. I felt we had enough time to see like how much it could really adapt to that. I don't know if that's the best way to explain it, but like
Yeah. Well, no. To be fair to you, I will say that I'm very open to having a Berserker retest back
Mm,
if the meta balances out, because it's definitely something that we would want to keep around if it was
Yeah,
balanced. But first, I would definitely need to see some more like reasonable counterplay drop to the tier,
yeah, and I've
and
said
then
it
I'd be
once.
100% on board.
I've said it every time we've discussed these bans, but for the record, again, we want to go to suspect test as soon as humanly possible. If the August tier shift changes very little and we think it makes sense to suspect something rather than another council vote, we will do that. We would like to suspect test. It's just we've got effectively a brand new metagame. We got to go back to council bans to fix stuff now because, like, hey, we had Ninjask in the tier. That's not gonna wait around for a suspect.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. We can't be playing that meta for 2 weeks to decide. Oh, Ninjask is definitely going to be broken, so let's ban it. Like we have to make good progress in the next, I'd say, couple weeks, just to see where the meta ends up.
Mm. Specs, you were also pro Berserker, yeah?
yeah, I see HDAD's points, like all of them. I think I just wasn't really convinced. Like my view was that teams were so similar because Ninjask was benefiting every partner that each team had, and also I think that it was the number one reason why Stunfisk was on every team. Um, yeah, I just wasn't convinced. I wanted to see another week with it, without Ninjask as well, just to see if it was a contributing factor to the god awful meta we saw. But
Yeah,
yeah, I see his points completely.
yeah. For me, I think it was reasonable to try another week and see how big of an issue Berserker was. What wasn't, in my opinion, although people definitely deferred on this one too, is Executor, which we did ban. I think Executor was absolutely not feasible to keep around, whether or not we had Berserker, incredibly stupid Pokemon. Specs, AV Berserker literally comes in once and then it gets 2KO'd for free. Non
Mm-hmm.
specs, it can come in maybe twice, but even then, like all the things it could do with Trick Room and Synthesis and Teleport and Future Sight and Sludge Bomb and Calm Mind, and I was running Tanga Berry and Cheelan Berry and there are other berries, Subseed sets. It only ever needs Leaf Storm and Psychic to be the best Mon ever. But
Yeah,
it could also do a
yeah,
billion
but
other things, and you do not reliably beat it. And your counterplay is extremely variable outside from the obvious go ninjask and like you turn on it. I don't know. This is the one thing where like people made counter arguments and I didn't understand them and I didn't find myself being able to be like, I kind of see where you're coming from. Maybe we can keep egg. I was initially on the fence, but then like the more I played with it, I just could not imagine keeping egg at all.
The moment I faced Future Sight, Specs Eggy plus Ninjask, to really bone any of the darks that are running around, I was like, nah, okay, yeah. I was thinking of editing my post to say like, oh yeah, Eggy's too much, but that combo alone, that was ridiculous.
yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah.
Future Sight sort of made its way like late into the week, because I saw a few people
Mhm.
towards like Friday, Saturday when we were doing the vote saying, "Oh, I haven't seen Future Sight. It's probably not that huge of a deal." And I'm like, "No,
Mm-hmm.
this is just a thing that's we haven't messed around with, and it just adds to the like complexity of how Eggy functions." Um, Plus, I think the key thing with Eggy, for me at least, is that in a long-term game, it has like stab Giga Drain, so it can reasonably stay around, not take any hazards damage, or like recover off any hazards damage and all that type of stuff. So it's a breaker that is difficult to pressure if you don't have a proper reliable wall
Yeah,
in that way.
yeah, and I like to represent what's happening on Untier Talk. I will say a lot of people were pro Executor, pro keeping it. I do not know that I could accurately represent their arguments at all. They're certainly there, um, but I shouldn't be doing it because I just don't get it. Like Eggy just killed things, and I compare it to Appleton, which we did not ban by a much better margin. Eggy was banned 7-1. Appleton was not banned 7-1. So Appleton is a big difference where it has some set variety, but the only major different thing it does where it might kill things in a different way is if it's Iron Defense body press stuff. For the most part, it's pretty consistent. It doesn't feel as powerful as Eggy. It doesn't have the same longevity as Eggy as well. Eggy can do both harvest things and like Ajad said, just like the Giga Drain really helps. Appleton's a lot slower. Its weaknesses, like weirdly enough, Eggy has more weaknesses. And don't get me wrong, Appleton's defensive typing is better, but there are also some ways where like Appleton doesn't hit Mawile nearly as well, which is really nice. As just a random example of like one Mon that does a lot better, but there's certainly more um, where Appleton just has a bit more consistent counterplay, is a bit more annoyed by random things. And Apple Acid, as its big thing, Draco is not as nearly as good of a nuke as Leaf Storm, and Apple Acid is like a really good move, but to break the fat things. But it gives Appleton this consistent annoyed status versus more offensive teams that I think for me is kind of what saves it right now. It's certainly something I think there are a lot of mons I think might be more broken, especially with that Berserker. We're gonna have to look at Appleton, Galarian Rapidash, Drifblim, Thievul, and there are 5 mons that are potentially really big problem. Appleton, Drifblim, Thievul, Galarian Rapidash. I don't remember what the last one is. It doesn't matter. Point is, like, I think it could have big potential, but it feels more consistent to out offense. It feels a bit slower to break through things than Eggy, where Leaf Storm is just so much better. I think we have much better tools to deal with Appleton, and I'm fine with experimenting with it for now.
Yeah, having one of your stabs like have an immunity. Well, like I would say that Fairy is probably more common now than Dark is, so that's kind of huge for Appleton. Like you can realistically sort of go hard into like say Calm Mind, Rapidash or Gapadash, to curse the viewers, and kind of 1v1 it or at least threaten it. With Eggy, like you were either dying or a resist was taking like 60.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the comparison I would do it. I like Apple in this meta though. I really hope it doesn't become too much.
I would love it to not be broken. Yeah. As would Hajad, I'm sure, but you did vote bans. So you want to talk about that feeling?
Yeah. To be honest, for me, I played a lot of Draco at Jetpack Appleton prior to the like vote, I guess. And when I was playing that, it sort of gave me this like worry that it was usually limited to balance, but now it found its way onto offense as like I can check Marowak on offense and then Draco and then pivot into one of my other fast destroying things, you know what I mean? And that in itself, to me, I don't think that was a thing that I was happy with. I didn't think that was like a good place to leave a meta where you have this high functioning breaker also being able to pivot and also being able to wall. It just did too many things for me.
Yeah, eject pack is definitely a bit of shenanigans. I'll absolutely give you that. It mostly like the thing that mostly balances that out is having fairies around just kind of annoys the shit out of it. Although there's not that many fairies, especially if we get rid of Gapadash. But yeah, I will say though, it really, really sucks when you're gonna win a game, and all you have to do is Draco with Appleton, and then they like defog with Volibye and force you to switch out. That shit sucks, dude.
Yeah, I guess it does ruin some of the 1v1.
Or like you want a Draco Drifblim and it just strength saps. Like, oh my god, it's so it's really annoying.
The thing is with that sort of mind game is that if the Appleton is specs or just a standard.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Set, it's not that's not counterplay.
Like
I'm just saying, God, I fucking hate that.
Oh yeah, that would be annoying. Or a really clever pivot. You just hard Appleton on the Drifblim as it strength saps straight into, I don't know,
Scarf
you're good.
Lycanroc. Scarf Lycanroc, which
Yeah.
didn't want the attack drop.
Exactly.
Okay, maybe we're on to something. Yeah. Oh, the fifth mon I thought like has potential to be broken that we have to look at is Kling Klang. That's the other one. Because Klang is just good. We didn't vote on it. I don't think it's been a problem, but yeah. The last thing we voted on was Galarian Rapidash. I used a shit ton of Gapadash, and where I basically came down is it's clearly not running the meta right now. In large part because Ninjask and Berserker and Stunfisk and Sandslash are on every team, and all check it or annoy it to some extent. It's a bit annoying. Like Sandslash is a more proactive and offensive rocker, does a lot more damage and prevents setup. Stunfisk can paralyze you. Ninjask and Berserker obviously just really annoying. And most of the ban votes was like, well, if we're getting rid of this other shit, I really think Gapdash is going to immediately run the meta, which I get. Typically, we don't tier for future metas, but if we're like certain, like Orbeetle, we didn't start playing with Orbeetle in like PUPL. We were like, no, this is going to be too big of a problem. We need to nuke it now. And I get that. Where I kind of come down on Gapadash is just it's not running the meta, and also I do think we have enough to where even if it's like the best mon right now, it's not going to be completely ruining how we play the game stupid. It's just going to be real good. We have to beat it. That's kind of where I come down. I think Hejad is basically just the opposite here.
Yeah, I don't like that there's a thing which is untoxicable and then also has 339 speed and then also has perfect coverage and also has recovery. That to me is like a big turnoff, and I don't see what it really offers aside from that. Like, it's a nice typing to have in the tier, but not at the expense of being most teams being incapable of walling it over the course of a game. It's not. I don't think it's feasible to say a team, okay, you're going to have to long-term wall Rapidash. Do it, and it's like, no, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Even if you want to use the offensive pressure, stuff, I've seen all too many Keyberry sets, SD, and even the Carmine Keyberry sets. You take next to nothing from stuff like Stonejourner or Lycanroc or whatever that hopes to try and revenge kill you. So it's a really tough one.
Yeah, I don't know. I found offensive pressure, even with Keyberry around, consistent enough, at least for now.
For now, yeah. Maybe.
We'll see where it goes. If we have to ban Rapidash on Sunday, Gapadash, fine. Totally fine. I get it. I don't think we're going to have an unplayable meta. Oh, no, it wasn't Kling Klang. It was Lilligant. That was the thing. I'm like, okay, maybe it'll be dumb without Berserker and Ninjask. Yeah. That was the thing. That was the fifth mon that I'm like, we should be keeping an eye on. Okay. Yeah. Woo,
yeah,
okay.
I think me and MZ have a similar thing where like I can already see like Rapidash being so much better in a meta without like a lot of things that annoy it. But at the time of the voting, obviously I didn't vote, but at the time, I was kind of okay if we had something just pop off after all these bans that really wasn't before. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's a big surprise if Rapidash is broken. But I think me and HShag kind of differ from, he doesn't need to see like a lot of stuff in high level play to know that, yeah, this could be a problem in the future, and that makes him want to ban it. I kind of want to see it a bit. Just a little philosophy.
Oh yeah, thing, like playing with Gapadash in the pre-bans meta is like, oh my god, this thing gets 1v1 by everything. It can revenge a few things like Thievel or whatever, obviously, but for the most part, like, it was not killing everything all the time.
And then when it did, it would get revenge. It would get one kill.
Yeah, like the only way I could justify Gapadash if you're like, this is for sure going to be broken and too big of a problem for the next week. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I think the thing with, I guess, Rapidash, in my opinion, is like it's all about getting that SD off, and before the SD, as you said, it's probably 1v1 by a majority of things in the tier. But for me, I'm thinking, given its typing and given the set diversity and whatever,
It doesn't
it's going to
SD
get
well.
that SD.
I swear to God, it does not SD that well. And after it does, you got one revenge killer, good. Like, yeah, and obviously me saying it doesn't SD that well in Ninjask and Berserker meta, so very different case. But in that meta,
Mhm.
swear to God, did not SD all that well. Still good set,
Yeah.
still worth running. But yeah, that's kind of where I come down on it. That's like 20 minutes on the suspect stuff. I think is pretty reasonable. We'll see.
Yeah.
By next week, there'll probably be another vote on the 5 things I mentioned. Who knows what else might pop off? Maybe like Gorgeist or
Get Gorg out of here, please. I hate that thing.
just run itemless, bro.
Oh, come on. I hate that. Such a stupid
It is
move.
very silly. Half my attraction to Jetpack Appleton is just I can get rid of my item for Gorgeist, but I can also have a useful item. That's literally it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think we can move on to PPL now. Unless there's anything else? I think we're good. Okay. So PPL, week 5. Like I said last time, this is going to be a big settling out week to see where we end up for the end. And I think we right now have a pretty good snapshot of who's likely to go to playoffs after this. So the first set was Clay Dolls versus Carcoals. These are the 2 teams that were undefeated so far, and it was going to be very interesting to see how they stacked up. And turns out how they stack up is about even. They tied the week, so that was fun.
Just about how I thought it would go. To be honest, I rate them similarly.
Yeah, I really do. So SS wise, this we had some awkward SS games. Oh my God, the replays thread isn't updated. I just pulled up all the replays from week 4. This is week 5. I'm gonna have to. Yeah, sorry guys. I'm gonna have to go find everything. So, quick play filler for me. If we can just find one game, we can start talking about that as I find the rest. I fucked up a little bit. I thought replays thread was updated. Totally not. That's okay. Okay. Lax versus Tlenet. No, that's the wrong one. Fuck.
Are we doing K-Tut Star first, or?
I would like to get K-Tut Star first because that's the top one.
Okay.
Guys, we're really professional, and I'm fucking loving it. Okay, I found K-Tut Star.
Okay.
Yeah, this one was one of the games I remembered when they said the SS was some weird shit. Because K-Tut had your pretty standard Ninjask ground steel grass 2 fillers, the fillers being Gapdash Lapras. Totally cool team. Star had
Yeah.
It's like a semi-stall with no hazard removal, and it just dies to like spikes and T-spikes, which Katat didn't have. It's like a Licky Licky Tangela Fisk Cling Clang defensive core, and then Kadabra Golduck as breakers.
Yeah, we've seen a couple like of these teams or these kinds of teams this week, and I don't know if it had a removal and like I don't know, not Kadabra stuff. I think it'd be better. I just don't know what the plan is here.
I don't understand it, and I know Ivagero was defending it after and saying it did well in open, and like I don't want to just hate on the team. I genuinely like don't know what this is supposed to be doing and what it's going for, and it certainly didn't work out very well. I don't know. It's a very weird team. Hajad, do you have like anything happy to say about it?
No.
No.
I think it's foolish. I think to bring Ultra Bulk in a meta where you have Berserker and Ninjask to just cut, like basically this meta was Ninjask plus 5 just ridiculous wall breakers. That's Stumpfisk. That was like the key thing, because all you needed was Ninjas to mess around with offense. So yeah, I don't like the idea of bringing a lot of bulk, because the likelihood is that they have a breaker that can break your team apart is just super high.
Mm. Okay, yeah, we spent enough time being mean about this team. Not a ton crazy happened in this game. Katut kind of just won. It was a bit of a smackdown on the team. TJ versus Fellburn. This was interesting because TJ's been on a bit of a hot streak and his team's been doing well in SS in general. But Fellburn was undefeated in SS until this game, which TJ won, and they both brought Ninjask ground steel grass. And I didn't hate like watching a game like this. Just a little bit for 1 week. I thought this game was pretty interesting. TJ had like some spikes and a bolt on. That's interesting filler. Fellburn had dual ghosts rounding out his team. That's not something you see a lot of. Like just kind of fun stuff. I felt like TJ just kept up a lot of momentum, a lot better than Fellburn. Who was just a little slower on the draw, maybe? Does that make sense?
Yeah, he did feel in the back for a lot of it.
Yeah, and then by the end of it, TJ was just able to do like a lot more damage more quickly, and that kind of, for me, felt like the big decider.
I really like TJ's team. It's Ninjask plus a lot of stuff that can threaten Stunfisk. So Ninjask is just at 100 the whole game, basically. And then spikes just in case, like, the Stunfisk matchup gets messy. Like, Crunch did, like, 32 to Stunfisk. That's really good.
Yeah.
And it wasn't lefties, so I rate it.
Yeah, I think that's just been a common thing with the clay dolls. They've been bringing pretty decent meta, like, on top of the meta style of teams. Like, they haven't been fucking up as much as the other teams have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Clay Dolls have been pretty on top of it. We can go and see in the PPL sheet, they are 11-4 in SSP right now. That's pretty gosh darn strong. 11-4.
For how SS has been, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah,
100%.
Like they're keeping it up and locking it down. They did, however, lose Procopius versus Kepi. Procopius just did not play this one well. I thought he had an interesting team. Kepi has a fat Ninjask thing, like Ninjask plus like a slash and a null and a Marini. And then Ryman Gorg is offensive mons, relatively a lot of defensive presence. And Procopius had a weird team that looked like it should have a Ninjask. It was just Unpheasant instead. No steal either. And I just don't think he played very well, and certainly 0 ice resists versus offensive Mr. Rhyme, that was going to be a problem. But even before that, Kepi just stayed way in the lead pretty easily. Like, it came down to where Kepi had less mons, but was in a position where, oh yeah, Kepi's clearly winning this game. And Procopius also had what looked like non-choice but no roost Unpheasant, unless he just never clicked roost, which would have been very weird. I don't know. It was... Yeah, I did not rate this game from him. It was a weak showing, and Kepi played it pretty well and had like strong win cons played to at the end, and yeah.
The thing that won him this game, in my opinion, was early on he got so much value out of this type null. Poison, Dusk Noir, it got in on like Aggie, I think it was, early on, and it got a Toxic off.
Mm.
Yeah. Because near the middle to like late game, yeah, Kepi had less mons, but everything was just chipped, and Procopius just didn't really make enough progress. So, yeah.
I was playing a few test games with Kepi throughout the week, just because that was the only one who was around whilst I was around, and then I think I played this exact team, but I was playing super aggressively, and I think maybe he learned, okay, sometimes I got to take it to the opponent, and I feel like he played this bulkier team very offensively and very well. So, yeah, good job.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Okay, old gens. We have
Yay.
Skip Can versus LST. LST tried to counter team Skip Can pretty hard. According to him, anyway, he said I shouldn't try to counter team after this game. Yeah, he brought an absolutely ratchet team that just did not work.
100%.
Bit of a yikes. Skip Can just like played fine and hit the buttons and won the game.
Yeah. To be honest, the thing, I'll let you into a secret, okay? Some secret intel. Me and LST was asking a lot about the 5+1 stall team, but they wanted to make sure that they had like good matchup versus Aggron, because that team is usually quite weak to Aggron.
Mm-hmm.
So they came up with the idea, in PMs at least, to use CB Mudsdale over CB Crab. And looking at the matchup, Eggy would have been a problem, but besides that, it looked pretty decent for LSE if you use that same stall.
Eggy plus Bandit Pursuit Floatzel could have made it a little bit hairy, but it definitely would have been better than what he brought, which did not work. It had no Volt Resist, which really sucked versus Skip's offensive Volt Eel. Yeah, like it certainly would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
And I'm generally not a huge fan of
the counter
generally teams where you have just a general like a Haunter, Floatzel. Those are kind of like do nothing offensive mons to me.
A lot
in this
of
meta
them.
Because they can be invalidated so quick, and you don't even need to have a check to beat either of them. Whereas, and then the rest of the team is quite passive. It just the entire like I guess mix doesn't work for me.
Yeah, well, the skunk matchup was really bad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm assuming that
like Haunter
is...
Bronze, it must be something.
It's got to be something.
Yeah.
There's no way it kills everything.
I don't think there's much more to say on the game. It's just that
No.
he tried. I respect it a bit, but it didn't work out. They did redeem themselves in SM slightly with Trix versus Yandod, Bag of Tricks. But honestly, like Trix won this game versus the previously undefeated Yandod. Trix just got really lucky early game. Like fucking, I don't think Trix played it terribly, but I do not think he would have won this game the way he did whatsoever if he hadn't gotten very lucky early on. Yandod had done CB Crunch from his Skunk versus Trix's Victory Bell had done 86 the first time, and then he gets Skunk in on Victory Bell pretty soon after when Victory Bell's at 78, and it lives on 1 and gets the strength sap up. And Yandod had gotten his Skunk massively weakened to get to this point. It can't kill the Victory Bell and has to switch out. His Electros got Sludge Bomb poisoned also, like pivoting the Skunk in like that. That all just fucking sucked. And the worst part was like he outplayed Trix. Trix like presumably stayed in trying to get a Pursuit mind game off, because otherwise you've got Gastrodon and Regirock, both of which can switch into CB Skunk Crunch just fine. So like Yandod did the right plays and just got massively hurt with that roll. And that plus like 100%. The early Sludge Bomb poison completely fucked him. And from there he still continued to like really try and made plays and all of that, but there was only so much he could do. Like,
yeah, to be honest, I like Bag of Tricks' team that he decided to face against Yandod, because we analyzed this in previous weeks and said Yandod does not bring a lot of fighting resist. So I respect the bringing of like Ape plus Absol. That makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. But how he played the game, he never played for Primate. He was just sort of playing for like the next biggest game. You know what I mean? Like the next turn. Like what was the best move for that next turn?
Yeah, Trix played it like
real long-term strategy.
Safe and simple the whole time. And late game it worked because he started out so far ahead. But early game it did not work at all. And it just so happened that like Yandod got really fucked on the Sludge Bomb poison plus the Crunch roll, like just absolutely murdering early chances.
100%. I would have liked to see Trix play this a bit differently.
Yeah.
If I had to see this play again. I think this is like a fair matchup, like a 50-50 matchup, but I would have liked to see it been played differently. I didn't feel like it was played often.
I will also say Yandod's team pretty cool. Had a Surf Silvally Fairy, that's interesting. Had Dual Monkey. Dual Monkey is sick. Who doesn't love Dual Monkey?
Shane would be proud.
Yeah. So there's that. Very interesting to see that Claydolls like also probably would have beat the Carcoals without that one big thing. But obviously they took some other L's. Claydolls did take Oras with Lighthouses versus Expulso. this was just kind of a boring game.
Yeah, I honestly don't think we need to analyze this. This is just boring.
Herpa derp.
I haven't even seen this game. I helped Expulso in the testing. I kind of forget what changes he made though, but I don't mind his team.
Lighthouse just played better. I was
Is that okay?
I was very unimpressed with Expulso, who I have not seen play before.
He played well in tests. Maybe pressure got to him.
It came close. The game, like in theory, it came close, but you just got the entire like drift that Lighthouses was in control the entire time.
Yeah,
didn't really
I will say the one really interesting thing: Lighthouses had a Tox Tech Altaria. I don't know what that was about. But
I don't know what that does.
Yeah, I have absolutely no idea.
It doesn't defog, so
yeah, it doesn't defog this gen, but it's still weird to see. Yeah, like it came close, but Lighthouse was clearly in advantage the whole time. Black White PU, Alkion versus Evagero. Evagero back to just killing people in Black White. This was funny.
Violent.
This was funny because Evagero was almost certainly going to win this game regardless, but then got like a lot of funny hacks. Although early on, Alkion was roaring with Gabite and got a ground weak Pokemon every single time. When like Gabite could have roared Evagero into Stoutland, into Swanna, into Behem, kept roaring right into Tentacool and Clang every single time. It was pretty funny. I will say Eevee had a fun team, brought a Tentacool, which my team also brought. Tentacool's always cool to see. But yeah, I don't really know how Alkion was going to win this game, and he didn't really play like he was going to win this game. Evagero kept doubling out and like being very careful to make sure Alkion couldn't spike up a lot once the Tentacool died. But Alkion never really played for anything and just kind of died.
Great.
So,
yeah, I don't know a lot about Black White.
Well, that's fine. You know DVP. Let's just go to DVP then.
Okay, grab the replay for that.
Yeah, this was Drud versus GA.
Oh, GA. Okay.
Eevee had the what?
Eevee had the ultimate Maractus counter, aka Tentacool. So you're already in a heightened mood if you see that matchup with no spin blocker.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
All right. Okay, so this was the game where Drud got crit turn 1.
Yeah.
And basically got teched out by Scarf Relicanth, which was odd because I think Drud knows about that set. I think he had one too. I probably would have scouted for that just knowing GA, but yeah, basically Machoke dying, Murkrow dying in like the first 3 or 4 turns. GA just reaped the rewards of bringing techs.
Cool. Yeah. We've spent like 20 minutes on the first series. That's why I'm trying to move things on a little more.
Yeah. I won't say anything more.
So yeah, it was a solid win from GA, and that was a tie between the Claydolls and the Carcools, who remain the top teams now. Neither of them have been taken down a peg. Next series was mine and Specs, Meowsticks versus Octilleries. This was a dumb series. I'm not gonna lie. Wasn't great. Wasn't great. Meowsticks, we've been doing pretty well, or like at least fine, mostly off our SS, which has been like overall positive and strong. This week we went 1-2 in SS, which was pretty bad. Which was just some kind of some dumb stuff going on that just really shouldn't have. So I lost to Maroon in a game where I led Appleton, he led Berserker. CB Adamant Tough Claws Berserker is like a 30% chance to OHKO my Appleton. And if he doesn't OHKO, I'm pretty fine. I'm pretty happy. I'm going to recover, and I'm ready to play this game of Pokemon. He gets the 30% chance, and that pretty much just fucking kills me immediately. Like, I just kind of die after that. And
I remember.
It's just one of those fucking things.
This keeps happening with your games where it's like, I spectate for like the first turn, you get desperate and unlucky, or something really whack happens, and I just leave. And I'm just like, this game's over. I can't believe it.
Dude, I was dying when you said, yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can do. I wouldn't have changed my lead. I wouldn't have switched out, obviously, because that's just, like, unfortunate. It just kind of fucking happens. And that that's kind of just life. I lost off that. Maroon, like, immediately after that, Maroon's Sing Blunder Policy Leafeon should have immediately won the game. Instead, he played it really weird, where he kept trying to sing my Dreadnought instead of just killing it for no reason whatsoever. Like, he could have just killed my Dreadnought and not bothered Swords Dancing at all. I have no idea why. But because he did, I only lost like 3 Mons to it. And that was still pretty much game. Otherwise, I liked this matchup. I had Gapadash plus Swoobat. It was a really fun, not Ninjask offense, which was specifically my intent to be like, I'm not going to do the thing.
Sure.
In hindsight, that was bad because honestly, like, Maroon's team was bad. It was. I get it if A, you're comfortable with it, and B, it specifically has like interesting techs that you want to try out that can steal games, and see if you think that's good against the stuff I typically use, which maybe I have a hard time determining that because I'm the one who used it. But it's kind of a whack team. The only fast Mon is a Toxic Orb, Galarian Linoon. It's not good, and if I would just gone with standard offense, things also would have just been a million times better. So that was that. Termy's loss to ZS was not much better. Here's how this game goes. Termy outplays the shit out of ZS, who keeps choking for the first 14 turns, to a place where Termy pretty much just has a win. Then Termy decides to not close combat with his Phalanx because he does not want to risk getting static. She does not want to risk getting static paralyzed with versus on ZS's Stunfisk. Because she does not close combat, she loses all momentum. ZS gets to Wishport back Stunfisk to full health, and then Termy is nothing and loses. It was a very disappointing game, and I will roast my manager for this. Like, ZS got all their stuff completely weakened early on. Termy had the position, but if you don't kill things and then they get wished back to full health, like, that's it. I liked both the teams at play. This was just a joke fest. Like, ZS had a funny eject pack close combat Hitmonchan and some Specs Eggy stuff. Termy had Future Sight Eggy plus Phalanx plus Ninjask. That shit was really cool. Could have done a lot, but just absolutely threw this game. Like, oh no.
Yep.
It was ugly.
Yeah. Termy's justification was that ZS could have gone a hard Ninjask, but at that point, I think you just click. Like,
no, you absolutely click. As long as Stunfisk isn't healing up, as long as you're not letting Stunfisk heal up because you're losing all offensive momentum, you're fine. But yeah,
sometimes you just have to click.
The SS game we did take was when we brought Full Stall versus Banks's Grookey Terrain team. I don't know how to feel about Grookey Terrain team because Drifblim and Thievul, they both get revenged by Ninjask, but Banks did it anyway. And this was pretty much a fine matchup for Stall, except for Banks had Taunt Sub-SD Ironhead Berserker, which was literally going to be, if it static paralyzes on Stunfisk, we win, and if it doesn't, we lose. And it did, because it has to Ironhead like 3 times, so that's pretty favorable for us to win that. But that was like literally the thing that determined the game, was if the Berserker would paralyze. There was also a turn where Banks dodged Vullaby's Toxic and then crit it, which made things a little bit scary, but like Banks was just so problem versus Stall that like it had to be Berserker winning regardless, and it couldn't do that once it was paralyzed.
We really should have lost this game with what happened, but
I don't
somehow
why? Why should we have lost this game? It was just, does he paralyze or not?
Everything that could make us lose happened, and then we won.
Yeah, Berserker got an Ironhead flinch, and then there was the Drifblim Tox dodge into crit the Vullaby. But like, because we paralyzed, it didn't matter. It was fine.
Yeah.
Banks was also pretty T-Spikes weak, so that helped a lot because it was Marini stall. I will say the one thing was, though, Berserker would not have been as big of an issue if Bugsy, like, clearly didn't know that Grookey ran knockoff and got Marini knocked off by it very early. So that made it a bit scarier, but still.
Yeah, not very much to say.
There's not a lot to say about this game. It's just not great. Like, we didn't do well there. Our big savior was coming back in old gens. SM, we took both games. That was pretty cool. But I want to actually leave SM because those were the last 2 games played. And the big thing this set was like Octilleries have been doing real bad. Meowsticks have been good contenders. And by the time we get to the later stuff, we're actually down 2-3 to them. So it was pretty scary. The other like big poor loss we took being Specs' game. You wanna talk about this one? Is it too pain?
Briefly,
Is it too painful? Because I don't mind.
dude, I just completely flubbed the Missy matchup, and then it was the perfect Missy, the defensive sub CM, I believe it was, to really just mess with me. I just didn't get my things in fast enough, which is trouble when you have rain. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it wasn't a great played Rain. It was also pretty whack Rain because we had a T Spikes
yeah.
B drill thing.
Oh, it's so cool though. Like it actually matches up well versus what Rain typically struggles versus, which was my big thing, and it was also just fun. But there was no Bello, no Vic, so
Yeah,
yep,
no grasses at all from Bughouse. Well, he didn't reveal one mon, but yeah, it just
yeah,
wasn't good. And at this point, like we're down in places that we should have been much stronger than the versus. Like we should have been much better in these tiers.
yeah.
Um, but then this is where we come back in the other old gens. So in Black White, we had Lil Burr versus Somalia. Lil Burr had a fun Scraggy trap team with Scraggy plus Goth with a Tentacool as well. Let's go Tentacool. And Somalia had just this absolutely ratchet stall with Bronzor and Duosion and Slowpoke and a Cottony. I don't get it at all. Team makes no sense to me. Apparently, Somalia didn't know Gotharita was legal also, and his team just absolutely like we literally just trapped his throw with Gotharita, and then Scraggy automatically won. It was a stupid game, and Somalia just had a silly team.
Best game of the week.
It was no,
That's
it's
my
not the best game of the week. We'll get to that.
no, come on, Scraggy just like
This is a better.
508.
This is a better game this week. Trust me.
Okay,
We're
there
getting
it
to
is.
it soon, and I'm going pretty fast. Like, interject if you want to say things. I just don't think like Hajad has anything to say about this stuff really. So
My whole thing in Black White NU was Scraggy to B plus. That was my whole thing. That was my whole gimmick.
hell yeah, Scraggy for life. Scraggy did the work. I mean, just it killed the triple psychic stall.
Yeah, everybody go
Yeah.
watch that game.
There was Blue
That's
IM. We also took Oras in Blue IM versus TSR.
One of the worst games.
Blue IM just got outplayed so hard. Not just outplayed, but also just made so many inexplicable bad plays. That was just ugly from him. It's the same thing with like Broth versus I think it was Bobby Dagan, where he just got absolutely smacked in Oras, and it was like, yeah, this is just ugly. You got to do better. There's not much else. TSR just absolutely buttoned and won. Like we literally brought Camerupt because Camerupt is a Pokemon that gets exponentially better the more you outplay your opponent. And holy shit, Camerupt just put in so much work. Like this game was just
The thing that I think separated the auxiliaries and just the rest of the teams in PPL so far has just been the SM and the ORAS, because those are the most consistent tiers out of all of them. But if you have good teams and good players, you should be able to take a lot of those games. And unfortunately for the auxiliaries,
yeah. I mean, we lost bad in SS. We had to take old gens back, which versus most other teams, our old gens haven't been the crazy strongest. But they're what carried us here versus the auxiliaries very hard. It was it was unfortunate because that was a big opportunity for them. So finally we get to SM, the two SM games. The first one was Rob Jr. versus Avarice. This was another game where Rob kind of just outplayed Avarice extremely hard. We brought Pivots plus Specs, Waterspout, Jellicent, and it absolutely just murdered Avarice very hard. It was yeah.
It's basically the Specs camera up of Sun Moon, I guess. Like Rob Jr. just got it in as many times as possible in the early game, and exploited the hell out of this team.
Yeah, it was extremely dominant. I was pretty cool with this. This week I took off building SM. We just used like two old teams from stuff, which most other teams have been doing a lot more reusing, but we've been building a lot. This was just let's load you guys up with some real good teams, and I think you'll just be able to do some good work. Rob Jr. was part one of that, and part two was my absolute pick for one of the best games of of PUPL and my favorite game of the week, Raichi versus Solinor 24. Um, where struggle just kills two things.
Dude.
This game was so crazy. I just sort of wondered if it actually happened or if it was a dream. I had no idea.
Yeah, so I would have honestly
Struggle
said
killing two things.
I would have honestly said this matchup is about even. We've got some strong stuff versus Solinor. We've got like an Absol that does some work. Solinor, on the other hand, has a Crabominable, which obviously like you can't switch into Crabominable, but this team, could pressure Crabominable. But Crabominable plus Alola plus Dodrio could have done some serious work. But as the game went on, it turned out like no. With the absolute high point being the point where Raichi's CB Absol knocks off into Colbur Jellicent. Jellicent only hexes in return. I don't know why that was a thing. Absol gets cursed bodied, kills Jellicent with struggle anyway because knockoff did so much. Solinor goes to his Alolan Raichu thinking he'll scare out Absol. Raichi just stays in, predicting Solinor to double, which makes perfect sense when Raichi has his lantern in the back. Solinor tries to double the Crab on the lantern. And Crab just gets 2-hit KO'd by Choice Band Absol struggle in such a beautiful moment. It was just so funny. I cannot express to you the joy that I felt upon seeing a Crabominable get 2-hit KO'd by struggle. And
Yeah.
aside from that, Solinor also sacked his Jellicent and immediately died to Primeape, so I think we would have won even if that bullshit didn't happen. Like, he fucked up there big time. But that was just such a moment.
Yeah, I played Pokemon competitively on this site at least for 6-7 years, and I've never seen Struggle get any more than one kill ever. But see it get two, just being like, oh my god, this is a miracle moment that's going on here.
Yeah, and honestly, like I think Solinor definitely misplayed. He should not have let the Jellicent die. He had only Scarf Dodrio as the check to Primeape after that, which is going to die fast because he also his removal was Defog Skunk, which is not the most consistent thing, and he also had Specs Alolan Raichu, which I think is pretty bad. And this is a great game why where Raichu had a Dark type and a Volt Absorbmon, and Raichu just like, oh, I have to go Raichu to revenge this Absol, but I have to try to double. Like that's where you get fucked up. Obviously, if you played better, it wouldn't matter. But like at the building stage, that is prime position to fuck you up for later game when you've got this Mon like Spexalo and Raichu that just can't click buttons.
Especially because you've invested so much in your Alolan Raichu matchup because it's basically a dead weight defensively. So you invested quite a lot already just having that on your team in the first place. It has to do something, but it just didn't in this way.
Mm-hmm. Man, this has been real long.
Yeah, you guys go on.
It's all right. My series will be short.
All right, yeah. Clangs versus Dracloaks. They tied, and that kind of happened. Yeah, Clangs managing to tie is like that's pretty good for them. But this wasn't the most interesting series, I would say. Telenet versus Lax in SS, I think, was pretty fun and kind of the ideal for fun Ninjask Steel Ground Grass stuff, which they both brought, but overall engaging and fun game, I would say. Yes?
Yeah. I think Telenet had winning chances. He just, I don't know, like the crit on Lapras obviously sucked during the game, but it just felt like he didn't really do much. Or, I don't know. He was pretty upset after the game.
Yeah, it was rough. Lax played well. Telenet definitely had some fun outs. It was a Power Herb, SD Power Herb Dig Ninjask, which definitely could have blown back Lax's Stunfisk or Berserker and like been more impactful than it was because it didn't. It just didn't really end up doing enough for him. Lax being a pretty good player now that we mention it. There was Confide beating Gum. That just kind of happened.
I don't remember this game.
Not much really happened. Um, they both had fun Silvally ices, so I rate that. Um,
Everything else is the same. God
yeah,
damn it.
very similar Ninjask stuff, except Confides actually didn't have a Ninjask. It just had like all the other stuff.
I pictured a Ninjask there for a second.
Yeah, basically. There was a point where Gum kind of got messed up because there was some there was a crit that Confide crit. Yeah, Confide got a crit, and it kind of messed up Gum trying to do some future sight shenanigans. Because stuff died too fast. Oh no, Gum got a crit, and it messed up their own future sight shenanigans because they couldn't set stuff up, something like that. And that was like a little bit of a weird moment where what Gum had been setting up like never came out. But that was basically the only like notable thing. Confide just kind of won this.
Well, the biggest thing to me is Stunfisk went down by like turn 5 to a Driftbloom. Like the Driftbloom matchup is really bad here.
Yeah, Confide had a dual status Hex Driftbloom that ended up doing a lot of work as well. That was pretty cool.
Like the Lycan matchup after that was pretty poor as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that Silvally Ice slot kind of almost hindered him in a way on Gum's part, because usually that's a slot for like something to deal with Drift, or at least switch in.
Yeah, Silvally Ice just not being as good as reliable to switch in.
Yeah.
And then there was Piff versus Lopunny Kicks. Piff is notable for using stall. Lopunny Kicks did not have outs versus stall and just got stalled and lost. I don't know what's up with that. Piff has like recently I've been watching like his PU Open games, PUPL games, has not been playing all that well, but has just not been facing the hardest matchups, and I don't know why. Like you're playing Piff, you should just have stall outs, but Kicks didn't and he lost.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate. I personally think that Piff is a really good player. He just needs to be comfortable in the meta, and I don't feel like the meta is really where it's at. So he often resorts to stalling. So it's just like a case of you understand that the meta's in this position. You need to bring anti-cheese and anti-stall to make sure that you have those outs, and then just hope you can outplay.
Yeah. Well, it's a thing where I get if you don't want to completely counter team somebody or put like a ton of prep, but if you know like somebody like Piff is going to use or it might use this, I don't know why you wouldn't just have at least like one mon, have something.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean? Like Piff had a Roxless stall that you can get so much momentum off of for free, and you have nothing to abuse it, and you just lose. So that was pretty much it. Moving on to SM, there was Ajna versus Luthier. Again, just kind of a game that happened.
I actually can't remember this game, even though I was quite invested in
it. I mean, Luthier played it fine, but didn't really do anything crazy and kind of just won. I don't have anything to say about that.
I don't remember this game either.
I feel like Ajna could have won, probably, just kind of didn't happen. Like they could have done more work with Farah. Kanga spikes is what I meant to say. It just kind of didn't happen for no good reason. I don't know.
It didn't even feel like the matchup was that bad.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then there was Esta versus Ziri. Esta won because Ziri had a Caracosta that just kind of won the game. But then Ziri missed the Stone Edge and lost with their Caracosta.
I was very invested in this end game.
Yeah, we were watching this live. Other stuff happened. There was fun stuff. Ziri had an Agua Belch victory bell, and a guts Ursaring, not a guts Ursaring, like was it Quick Feet or a Scarf Guts? I don't know. Yeah, it was like Scarf Guts Ursaring, and there was a Spiritomb. Like it's an old team, but it's got a lot of weird text. Is the point, like wacky fun stuff. And it would have worked because Esta just kind of died to Caracosta, but the Caracosta missed the Stone Edge, which happens. Like,
Yeah,
I love Tomb, man. I love Tomb.
Tomb is
I
really
agree we
good.
don't see it more. I agree we don't see it more.
Tomb's cool as shit, but it ran into Life Orb Shiinotic from Esterosa. So
Yeah,
that's a bit of a
you're
rip.
epically own.
Yeah. From what I remember, it was the fact that Esta's Buskin was jolly that one because Ziri could have gone Raichu at some point and still outspeed because it was Scarf. I think that was the big thing.
Oh yeah. There was also some late game like 50-50 maybe,
Yeah.
or speed, or what nature was its stuff. But
Yeah, I love that. I love that stuff. Okay.
Or
Give it to
as
Esther, though.
or as
Yeah.
Kyo beat GGOPW. Kyo played well and GGOPW did not. And
Was this where he was weak to Electrode?
yeah,
He was weak to Electrode versus
GGOPW. Yeah, you're weak to Electro versus Kyo. That's a mistake. But also, he had a Golem, and Electro just stayed in to HBS the Golem as it rocked, like very early on. As I think GGOPW was like, oh, it's gonna be Specs Electro. No, it's Life Orb, puts Golem down to Sturdy, and after that, Electro did a lot. And GGOPW, but also GGOPW kind of got consistently outplayed. Kyo had a lot of good pivots and protects. Brought in bringing in Leafeon on jump left, sleep powder, and like consistently getting that kind of stuff right. Just really put up a better game here.
Yeah, me and Termy were analyzing it, and GGOPW like played the end game extremely weird. Like the Duosian could have legitimately like 1v1 the rest of the team, but they stayed in versus Shadow Ball Kadabra when they had like 3 Mons that died to rocks. It was
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, it was also really at the end of the game, GGOPW he had 3 Mons that died to rocks left. A really funny sight. Like just wasn't using them as sacks and pivots
and
at all.
2 of them survived until the end of the game.
Yeah, I don't. It was weird.
Yeah.
Black White. We had DNB win versus Pablo GGGGD. This was a real surprise because Pablo played this pretty well for the most part, I think, and it looked like he had the endgame won until it turned out to be no attacks Togetic. It was Nasty Plot Baton Pass T Wave, and I don't think we saw the last move, which I always or Nasty Plot T Wave Baton Pass Roost. I mean, I always run Hyper Voice instead of T Wave because you don't want no attacks on your thing. But Pablo's no attacks, and that's literally what lost him the game when it just looked like he absolutely had the win here. So that was really sad because otherwise, I still think DNB's team actually looked a lot better. I've been pretty hard on him because he's kind of sucked and been lucky, but this was like better stuff from him. He just also would have lost except for the shock, like no attacks, just out of nowhere. Really weird to see.
Bring back attacks, bro. Bring back attacks.
Yeah, like that was just such a weird thing to cost him the game.
Yeah.
And then there was DPP, where once again Spatial got to a point where they lose the game last turn unless their Perugly crits the very last turn. But this time they didn't crit and they lost.
Yeah, it came down to like Custap stuff again. I love that Haste uses Custap in this meta because nothing really does typically.
Yeah, Custap Torkoal was pretty big. They also played really well with their Murkrow early game. Just Spatial got absolutely messed up there. With like HP ground Murkrow, it killed 2 things and crippled a Probopass down to half health. Strong stuff, and I think this was Haste even reusing the same Grovyle team, and still just managed to put in so much work with text and stuff that was real impressive.
Yeah.
Okay.
I rate Grovyle.
Hijad, do you rate Grovyle? Are you a fan of Grovyle used? Are we a real tier?
We love Grovyle and the entire Trico tree.
Okay, we finally get to Beartix versus the Dens. I was very much looking forward to this because it's the 2 Brit teams facing off, and both teams have been doing like pretty good, but not as strong. So like they were tied in that like mid-tier team spot, and this would have been pretty big for both teams. And Aden's won 5-1 with 2 dead games. So
Yeah, it was 5-0, and then nobody wanted to play after the 5-0, so
yeah,
it was just dead.
after the 5-0, no one wanted to play, and then Schneider, for some reason, was like, "Yeah, I'll play," and ended up getting the team's 1 win versus Everardo.
Nice.
Yep.
It was pretty funny. Okay, let me pull up these games. So we had Osh and Schneider. So only 2 SS games happened. Early on, we had Osh beating FLCL. This was also like a relatively fun dual ninja-esque thing.
It was a good game.
Yeah,
Osh was on fire this game, so I was very happy with him after it. Because it's not hard to win. It's very hard to win with Wigglytuff in the meta. Like,
yeah.
Wigglytuff is so bad.
All Wigglytuff did was be a tactical sack for rocks, but like it worked.
Yep.
Um,
That's how you have to play it. Mom's dreadful in this meta.
Yeah, it's shocking how annoying it is. Yeah, I think Osh played pretty well. Had good late game outs. Just generally good stuff from him. I really did enjoy this game. One of the ones that's worth watching.
Yeah.
There was SJ versus Everardo that happened at the end after everything was already over. Everardo being the one loss for your team, I assume that means you're going to bench him for life.
He's my boy.
SJ had a Lapras that did an inordinate amount of work for Everardo's pretty basic ninja-esque Berserker, Eggy, Stunfisk stuff. Because neither of the last 2 mons resisted Lapras. Lapras is really good at breaking that core. It's not something you prep for. It's not something you see a lot. I get it. Like, Lapras is cool, and he got fucked up by it. Cannot blame him at all.
Yeah, it's more so down to the meta. I just put that loss to meta. It's just like,
yeah,
he brought a better breaker than you lost. Like, there's not really much you can do there.
It came down close-ish, but like SJ definitely had the win.
Yeah.
I'm missing that other SM game. So we had Tasker versus Soulgazer and Snaga versus Finch. Yeah. So Tasker versus Soulgazer was pretty interesting. Early on, turn 1 actually, Tasker reveals he's a Scarf Lycanroc, which he said after was adamant with Zen Headbutt to lure and kill Primeapes. Super cool. Oko's Soulgazer's Scarf Rotom Frost turn 1 as it's just looking to Volt out versus Tasker's no Volt Switch immunities. Fortunately for Soulgazer, like he said after, he didn't really need Rotom. He had a really good Kangaspikes matchup. Tasker was just like really, really bad versus Kangaspikes, and Soulgazer pretty much just played the shit out of his 5 mons and won anyway. Like Tasker looked to be ahead early on, but I genuinely don't know how he was going to win this game because Kangaspikes fucking sucked to face.
Yeah. That team is just so fundamentally well built together that any surprises or any things that can go, you still have a shot at winning no matter what if you play your cards right. So SG does that.
If Tasker just had a different team, I feel like there's a lot of things that maybe could have happened. But it just like was badly pressured by Ferroseed and the Trick Room Jellicent. Sandslash was not going to be spinning at all. Very weak to Kangaskhan. Like just it was going to be a real tough game. I don't know what Tasker was going to do. So Soulgazer now the only undefeated player at 5-0 in SM.
Go.
Cool for you guys.
Good team.
But yeah, a good game from him. Finch versus Snaga. Finch winning was one of those games that just kind of happened. I don't know if you have more insight into this. I was like, oh, that just kind of,
Yeah, I mean, the only real insight here is that I didn't want Finch to play SS just because his style as a player, it shouldn't be limited to the SS thing, especially when he's not as active as he could be. So I thought playing him in SM would be the better idea, given that it's the more balanced meta.
Yeah, Finch played it well. I think he had a bit better of a matchup with good outs versus Naga's stuff. Didn't make any big chokes. That was pretty much it. Yeah.
Very basic.
We had Teddy versus Bobby Dagan. This was a pretty good ORAS game. This was a pretty fun ORAS game, I would say. Bobby had an interesting balance type thing with an Articuno and a NP Mime. Teddy had a team that I'm sure he's used before because I don't think he's building, but it doesn't look very Teddy, and I don't actually recognize it. It's got a Comma and Grumpig, which is...
It's a new team. It
is a new team. Okay, yeah.
he lost every single test game with this team, brought it anyway, and managed to win. I have no idea how.
I do like this team looks like a me thing though. It doesn't look like a Teddy team. It looks like a me team where it's got like the weird Grumpig and Floatzel and Ninetales and like conditional kind of Mons and then like a balance core slapped on. It looks like weirdly sloppy for a Teddy team. Like I think it's I'm saying it looks like a me team because A, it's the kind of style I build, but B, it's also like doesn't look as good.
Yeah, well,
But it's
that's
cool.
probably why
I
he's
like
losing
it.
a lot.
I like it. It's got a
Yeah.
combine Grumpig, which did a lot of work. And he just generally like Bobby played well, but Teddy also played well and had like good outs. And this was fun. I don't have much more to say. Fun game.
Yeah,
The
this was
the
probably the
big
best Forest
thing,
game.
yeah, the big
Or
thing
one of
was
the best Forest
getting
games.
an early switcheroo with his Floatzel to give Chin Chow a choice band. That was pretty problematic for Bobby. Um, but it definitely could have
Good
gone
win
either
as well.
way. Like CM Grumpig was the thing that had to beat back the Articuno, which was pretty interesting. Um, yeah, very fun, worth checking out. And last game of the week, there was Black White Chill Shadow versus TCO. TKO. Why does he TCO? This was
Crystal
fun
X.
because Chill Shadow had the Natu balance versus TKO's Maractus spikes. That's not something you see a lot. Um, Fun back
How,
and forth game, really.
how did Chill Shadow's team beat Tricker and Behemoth?
Yeah, well, it didn't. That was the big thing.
Is that like a thing? It's
Toxic.
Tricker.
It's just.
Yeah, Tricker
I'm
and
pretty
Beham's
sure
a
it's
thing.
toxic.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's toxic Stunfisk and toxic Natu. I think so. That's probably how he pressures it.
Yeah, not great
Tries to
outs.
survive.
TKO Blake just generally played this well. Managed to kill the Stunfisk, not the Stunfisk, the Natu with the Maractus early on, and then just kept using offensive Maractus, like never even bothered to spike. And Chill Shadow had like some good smart plays, but overall, the late game BHM weakness was a big issue. It wasn't like Stunfisk didn't even toxic it; he just had to go for discharge paras, um, and that was pretty much what just decided the game. So, like a strong win from TKO here.
Good stuff.
100%.
Yeah. So that's week 5. After this week, we kind of know where the teams are at. So Claydolls, Carcoals, Dedens, all sitting with 7 points, looking pretty strong for playoffs. Could miss if any of them like tank really hard, but looking pretty good. Then you've got Meowsticks and Bearticks at 5 and Dracloaks at 4 points. That is like win-loss points. And these 3 teams are probably going to be competing for that final playoff spot. It's probably going to be between them. None of them play each other again. They're just going to have to outperform each other. And then you have Clangs with 3 and Octilleries with 2 in the back. Octilleries are mathematically out. Clangs could technically make it on a really long shot, but pretty unlikely. So mostly I think what we're going to see is just Claydolls, Carcoals, and Dedens trying to just not completely fuck up, while Bearticks, Meowsticks, and Dracloak just try to out-solid each other. Meowsticks slightly ahead with the points and the better win-loss right now, but could be any 3 of these teams going in. Hope it's us, obviously, but yeah, we'll see.
Woohoo!
All right, week 6 is up. I'm not going to talk about that because it's been very long and I kind of have to dip. So you want to do just a real brief gimmick corner?
Yeah, sure.
Specs, you got anything you want to talk about?
Let HA go first. I'll throw out my builder.
So there was this one test game I played versus Megazard, like really early in the week, and I used Scarf, Spikes, Sand Slash with Rapid Spin as well, and it won the game because I had Spikes.
I had a 100% win. I just didn't think it was gonna be Scarf, Spike, Sand Slash.
Yeah, 100%. But that's what fucked you up there.
Yeah,
I think it's a pretty cool set just in general though, because the knockoff utility, Rapid Spin utility, and Spikes, as well as not being weak as well. So it's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, I rate general offensive Sand Slash. It's actually a really cool poke to have. It's nice to see it not just be suck and irrelevant for once. I don't have anything as crazy as the stuff I had last week. I will say in the Ninjask meta, people should have just used more Ninjask plus Aromatherapy. Like I was using Ninjask plus Aromatherapy Hatchrim because you just send in your Hatchrim on the Stunfisk, and if you got paralyzed, you're good. And if you didn't get paralyzed, like you also just, and if you didn't get paralyzed, you go to your grass instead because there's no way they rock with you having Hatchrim. I also want to give a shout out to Swoobat because Swoobat's awesome and I like it. Just the Keyberry Combine stuff is actually pretty scary and a little bit more effective than I think people give it credit for. Not the most consistent Pokemon, still like not broken or anything, but very cool to mess with. Um, yeah, Specs.
Okay, so I think Unpheasant is actually half decent now. With I think we're going to be seeing less Stunfisk a bit. It's probably still the best rocker, but it's not going to be on 90% of teams. So I think that that's something that could be good. It has Brave Bird, good attack stat.
Yeah.
U-turn.
Super Luck's dumb as shit. It actually crits. Yeah. It crits a lot.
Yeah.
I rate on Pheasant. It's one of those things that's going to be cool to see. I want to see more on Pheasant. I want to see more different rockers now again. Now that Ninjask and Berserker don't beat like all of them except Stunfisk and Sandslash, I really think it might be cool to see. Oh my god, Stonejourner, more Dreadnought, which I ran. Pawniard can come back. Crustle can come back as like a lead because you don't need your rocker to stay alive the whole game. Palpitoad can come back. Carkol even. I think that'll be cool. But yeah, Unpheasant, sick, awesome.
Yeah, and you already mentioned Dreadnought for rockers, but I think Suicide Lead Dreadnought is actually pretty good. It's just a more offensive Crustle, really, without spikes, but you have a better dual stab. You have
Head Smash.
You have Head Smash for just killing yourself after getting up rocks. It's actually quite threatening in the lead slot.
Yeah.
So I think that
Jaw Lock as well. Jaw Lock. The thing that convinced me with that set is Jaw Lock or Jaw Lock beating Hatcham, of course.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
If Hatcham switches in, you can 2KO, although I think Head Smash probably does too. All right, we're going to end this off because it's been a while. I didn't think it was going to go this long. I got to go. Thanks, guys, for showing up. I hope you all enjoyed listening. We're going to be back next week, obviously. There's also some fun Open highlight matches, but we're not really talking about Open yet because no one's sharing replays at all and whatever. But follow Open too. Yeah, that's it.